Hello everyone, welcome back to another Realm of the Mad God video. Today I am doing the Confuse Control PPE. Rather than just putting on some music and letting the montage play and showing you the white bags or the items that I got on this PPE, I figured I would tell the story, the journey, and everything I went through to make this PPE what it became. Before starting the PPE itself, I decided to make one character that would be my practice character. I messed around with it for a little while. It was a priest, and it did alright. It managed to get a midnight star, but that was about it before it died to an instapop in a library. When trying to learn this PPE and discover its quirks and how to control it the best way possible, it took quite a bit of effort to do so, and I gotta say it was not the most fun or interesting thing to do. I came close to death a lot of times, and as you'll see in a second, Lair of Draconis was not my friend. I had to do a lot of these because of the event that was going on at the time, and green was one pain in the ass to dodge. Towards the beginning of the PPE, it was always very hard to adjust where I was walking. Instead of walking forward with W, it would be D, and that was extremely hard to get used to, but once your brain kind of understood that, oh, W isn't up, D is up, and then you could recalibrate, then it wasn't super bad. The hardest thing to learn about this PPE was easily the camera rotation, and I still don't think by the end of the character that I had fully understood and felt comfortable doing camera rotation, simply because of how hard and uncomfortable it was to press the keys needed in order to camera rotate with the Confuse Control keybinds. The second hardest thing to learn about the Confuse Control PPE was most certainly the, Confuse controls. Confuse controls took a lot of time for me to learn simply because going back to normal is what happens. But after playing for 8 years and every time you get confused, you by default say, hey, I gotta switch to confuse controls, it is unbelievably trippy to get confused and then start doing normal controls. In the background up until this point, you've kind of seen the beginning journey of this PPE and the trying to learn and get comfortable with all the stages. But after this, it kind of just becomes a regular PPE. Whenever I would switch to a regular character, it would actually feel weird because I'd by default press D to go up and then realize, oh, I can play this character normal. I decided to allow myself to use keys or join key pop runs in the Nexus because I figured with the nature of the PPE and how much harder it was over a typical PPE that should be allowed, and in all honesty, the increase in difficulty from the dungeons I was running probably served to get me much better, much quicker at confuse controls. The maxing process itself didn't take that much longer than a typical PPE would, simply because there's a cemetery event going on at the time, and cemeteries are extremely good for basically all potions. As I mentioned earlier, the camera rotation was probably As I mentioned earlier, the confuse controls was probably one of the things I struggled with the most during this PPE, and that made the final phase of Scold very hard actually. The chase phase and the paralyzes as well as the confuses made for one hell of a fight, and since I was not comfortable with doing rotations around the room, it was an extremely scary fight. A lot of time was spent in the cemeteries, primarily to try and max the character up as quickly and safely as possible, despite it not being as safe as you may think for a cemetery. Because of the abundance of potions during the cemetery event, I was quickly able to get myself close to 4-8, and then a little bit further after that 6-8. I did a couple times almost die reading stream chat, which is actually kind of funny when looking back at it now, but it would have really sucked to have died early on this character because, in reality, one of the hardest things to do with this character was not play on it, but I essentially couldn't play on other characters because I had ingrained into myself trying to practice these confuse controls and get used to confuse controls. So whenever I would try and play on a regular character on regular controls, it would actually trip me out a lot and feel very hard to play. Both a blessing and a curse of this PP was actually getting really nice items really quickly. As you can see, since basically the first few hundred fame of the PPE, I've had a tier 10 staff, a tier 4 spell, a tier 11 robe, and a tier 4 HP ring, which is a really great set and is a really great base, but with that being said, it took me a long time to get any upgrades from this, which was kind of a bummer. Break time for a reaction. Give me death. Damn. And as we get further on into the video, you're going to see my live reaction to a few more things simply because there's a lot of things that were pretty funny throughout the PPE as we get into these later stages. Coming up soon at around 750 base fame is when I can remember in my head feeling like I was beginning to gain some confidence with these new controls and actually not feel like a complete pleb. I was genuinely surprised that I even made it this far. I was highly doubting my ability to make it through just the first few levels of the PPE, but I did surprisingly well, and after getting used to the confused controls up until that 750 base fame, I actually got comfortable enough to rush tombs and rush other smaller dungeons like UDLs and stuff like that. I was genuinely surprised to see how many Davies, Wood Labs, and tombs were being popped. This seems to be a common theme whenever there's key popping going on, that these three are always just popped for some reason, but it does seem like a very nice way for a lot of new players to get their hands on some decent items, considering that those dungeons aren't super accessible through the realm and not even guaranteed. As I've been watching some of these clips back, I really start to realize how much I really disliked Laud and Haunted Cemetery after this event. They both didn't seem that bad while running them at the time, and I got kind of used to them, but dang. They do not need to make an event for both of those at the same time ever again. On screen now, though, you will see that this is actually one of the more interesting things that I had to do on this PP, and that was rushing a sprite world. The moving, I guess you could call them conveyor belts, plus the already messed up controls of my character, was extremely jank, and despite how well it looks like I navigated it, it felt absolutely wild to attempt to do this while on stream. Attack did take me a solid while to get maxed simply because of how many attack you need to max a wizard, but by the end of it, it felt like I'd become very proficient at farming basically all of the potions that I could need to get 6-8, especially on a confused control character. Sometimes still to this day I do my sprite worlds on confused control just for the shits and giggles, and because it was actually a quite fun experience once I got used to it and the actual aids that it was. As you can see on screen right now, I actually managed to get an EP, and that's the first white bag of the PPE, and I had used a loot clover because I had just gotten frustrated with not getting anything worthwhile, and so that's how I managed to get the first white of the PPE. I included this Godlands clip in here just to have you look at the good old keyboard and mouse projector that I had on screen, just to show you the raw amount of inputs that are required in order to do basic movements in this game. So I just kind of zoomed in and showed you that, oh my god, there's a lot that you have to press all the time. I really did find it extremely cool how quickly I was able to gain muscle memory of this, but let's get ready for another reaction here relatively soon. Nope, not a Doku. Sorry to get your hopes up. Finish it with an EP for an... Oh, dude, I was literally about to say finish it with an EP for an EP, bro. Actually, I really needed another Planewalker, so I'm actually really glad about that. I'm just going to let this play out because there's another reaction really soon. No, bruh. So yeah, that Sphinx was kind of depressing. I'd done quite a few tombs and not gotten any tomb whites, but I did so happen to get myself a wonderful, absolutely beautiful Sphinx. And then I quickly followed that up with a Doombow from the red wormhole, and I was extremely upset with this one because I was hoping for a tail, or the tail reskin, which would have been a really nice upgrade for this PPE. And I actually go on a mega hot streak here, managing to also snag a Sea Wand. The Sea Wand wasn't a great reaction just because I wasn't really expecting it or I couldn't use it, but to be honest, that was a really hot streak of white bags there in that short amount of time. On screen now, you can see one of the new challengers to the good old Confused Control PPE. Parasite Chambers were by far one of the harder dungeons simply because of the tentacle phases and the small movements that were very precise. That felt very, very counterintuitive with Confused Controls. Ice caves were deceptively easy, and the dungeons that I started doing now from here on out were all in the pursuit of getting quest chests as well as trying to get some upgrades for my character. Right here you see I do get a good old epic chest, 2 life, as well as that tier 5 spell, which was a nice upgrade. I get a Geb ring as well, which kind of just goes in the video because orange bag good. I actually got like 3 Geb rings in a row, but decided not to include it. I got really upset here. That could have been a UBHP, and a UBHP would have been super nice, But, you know, we did some shatters as well. Shatters weren't the most fun. We didn't do a third boss on this character, I don't think, but we did do quite a few seconds as well as quite a few firsts. On screen, I do some tomb rushing, but there's other people in here that are stealing my rush and make me mad. Once again, orange bag good. Orange bag good. Just kidding, screw the hook. The hook's ass. But you know it's not ass? Honey Circlet Gang. Honey Circlet Gang, easy upgrade. Honey Circlet Gang. Linky, if you make it to this part in the video, shout out to Honey Circlet Gang. Right here, I actually get extremely lucky with a bag that I get from good old DDoX Man. I managed to get myself an Astral, which is a beautiful upgrade to my Diabolic Staff, and we go from tier 10 to tier 11. Right here, we get lucky once again, grabbing ourselves a good old Cutlass. You can never go wrong with a Cutlass because melees equal good, and Cutlass gets you into certain runs that you couldn't otherwise get into normally. And we also get a ton of life, surprisingly, from all the DDoX that I do, and I actually managed to get life maxed relatively quickly after doing some of these DDoX. I get another hook, which I promptly throw away right after picking it up. The rest of the DDoX is basically just a life montage, but there aren't too many more left. I also managed to grab myself an Elder, which gets me to a very solid and respectable set. Astral with an EP swap out, tier 5 spell, tier 12 robe, and a good old Honey Circlet. I managed to grab myself another Wave Crest, which by this point is now just feed power because I have like 3 or 4 of them. After a lot of deliberation, I figured that it was time for me to finally take on the Lost Halls. And I was feeling pretty confident. I had spent a lot of time with this character, I was at 1.6k base fame, and I was ready to take on the world by this point. But the Lost Halls had some other plans. I decided to do a cult run because cult run had 3 or 4 white bags that I could actually use on this character, as well as a very, very solid chance of me making it through as long as I didn't do something stupid. Cults are a lot easier than Marble Colossus and Void, in my opinion, so I figured it was a much safer route to go. With that said though, I'll just let this clip speak for itself.
Knights. Do we have good knights? Do we have good knights? Guys, bottom left. Beautiful. Do you see before T went active? Unfortunate, bro. Unfortunate. Get better internet. Back up for free. Get better internet. I mean, I'm joking. Obviously.
So yeah, I did a stupid. If you guys want to leave some feedback or see a video like this again in the future, please let me know. It was a lot of fun, and I'd be more than happy to do it once again, but in more of a montage format. I've got another really cool PPE video coming out soon that is debatably even harder than this one, or at least more time consuming than this one, and I really look forward to seeing what you guys thought about this video in the comments. If you did enjoy, please leave a like and subscribe. It truly does mean a lot. I'm trying to get to 3K subscribers before I go to college, but that's probably not going to happen. But either way, I do greatly appreciate everyone who watched this video, and I sure hope to see you again in the next one. Peace.